Welcome to the Sleeping Barber podcast.
Dun, dun, dun.
Welcome back to another episode of the Barber's Brief. Mark and I use this segment to discuss what has caught our eye in the news over the last couple of weeks. We also highlight our marketing moment, which is really just a case study. We get into audience Q&A and, of course, our ad of the week. Mark, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. Can we leave that dun 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 in there?
We're
I guess it's in there now.
leave that in now.
Okay, great. Can't take that part out.
No. We're going to leave that.
Yeah. Great. Yeah, this is good. There's so much stuff actually in the news this week. Can I start? Because there's one
Please.
that is like really confusing me.
When I saw this hit our WhatsApp chat, I'm like, oh, this one's going to be fun.
Yeah. So Solo fired their CEO after what they call a marketing misstep, or attributing it to a marketing misstep. In I think it was November, they launched this like thing with Snoop Dogg. It was great. It caught everyone's attention. It was named as in 2023, the end of 2023. Ad Age called it one of the best 40 ads of the year. The CEO at the time reported a massive increase in social followers by 60,000.
Cool.
There was news articles like Forbes that had picked up the story, and I'm sure like hundreds of others, saying in this particular case, it ignited the brand success through humor, and then, went on to dispel all these lessons we should all learn from this. 2 months later, they just last week, they announced that the CEO has now been replaced. They downgraded their earnings from $540 million to $490 million, and publications are claiming that this is a marketing problem. So just real quick, like, it's just fascinating to me, this whole thing. Going from super high to a super low. And there's just so many like elements of the things we've been talking about that really strike home for me at this one. So one would be like, there's a general misunderstanding of how marketing works. If you thought a PR stunt was going to deliver massive impact on sales in the fourth quarter, I think there's like somebody did a really good sales job.
100%.
And there's some, totally. And there's some very poor understanding, I think, of how marketing actually works inside the company. There's things about like 595 rule in terms of reach that I think you can learn from this. You're gonna, if you're wanting to drive sales today, you really, in that particular case, especially in the fourth quarter, you got Black Friday. I mean, maybe the idea isn't to run a PR stunt. Maybe just stick with the playbook, hit a discount up, make sure that everybody's got a stove near them available to buy in store and online. And I know that a big driver for this, they claimed, was that online sales had taken a dip, quite a big dip. So I don't know. There's just a lot of things. And the other last point is that we talked about this with Roger. You don't judge a campaign by its success of buzz.
No.
It actually has an inversely proportionate relationship with revenue and business outcomes. And then the other part is business outcomes are always the business outcome, not whether you got a lot of press from it.
Could you imagine what it looked like internally? So this gets launched, like, our site visits are up by X amount of percent.
Yeah.
Maybe revenue did go up maybe the first few days. And then all of a sudden things just started slowing down. I think it also goes to show you can't put all your eggs in one basket as well.
Yeah. So I'm looking at a whole bunch of stuff trying to figure out why that is. But anyway, it's a fascinating story. And like, I think it'd be a great case study to look at once all the data is available.
Yeah. That's awesome, actually.
What do you got?
That one. Well, mine's maybe not as sexy, but it has to do with cookies again. So why not? I picked it up. Cookies are good. They're great, but they're going away. So this article in Marketing Dive talks about how generative AI could be something that kind of helps the third-party cookie deprecation. So I wrote about it. We talked about it. Like as of January 4th, what was it? 1% of Chrome users are now being phased out of the tracking technology that third-party cookies are using.
Mm-hmm.
By H2, it is suspected that they will roll out to all users across Chrome. And what's interesting is there's a survey that shows that 88% of U.S. marketers are confident about the cookie deprecation, that they have in place the right systems and the technologies to help continue like their advertising strategies. But they're also looking and considering AI solutions. Now, many of these AI solutions are coming directly from a lot of the publishers who've been working on these behind the scenes. But what's interesting about this is like there's still going to be some level of contention, like especially with like the Google Privacy Sandbox proposals. Yeah. And you really need to make sure that you're thinking about like alternative solutions to universal IDs, data clean rooms, and things like that. And I think at the end of it, what this is going to do is that the death of the cookie, or if you will, the crumbling of this cookie, will actually test the readiness for first-party data across all marketing organizations, right? Which will lead to a lot of those internalized generative AI solutions, because they're going to be a big, rich data set. So remember, we were talking to Darby about this very thing where generative AI, sorry, it was Darby and Craig. We're talking about like, how can generative AI become a tool for organizations? Well, this could be it, right? So you're feeding a lot of your first party data into these, into a tool, a generative AI tool that can help inform likely some of those targeting strategies at the outside. So I'm just fascinated by this space. I think it's going to be interesting. We'll just keep following along.
Yeah. So much AI everywhere, all the time.
It was the personality of the year last year.
I believe it. I believe it. So the next story is Amazon is using AI to help their customers find a better fit online. Actually, I really enjoy this story, in part because it's a real practical business case for AI. So poor fit is the leading cause for returns in apparel. Apparel has a 24% return rate, which is 8 points higher than the overall online return rate. And a big part of that is that people buying apparel are just buying a whole size curve because they don't really know if it's going to fit or not. And then they pick the one that does fit, and then they return all the other things. And so part of that is because of free shipping, free returns. It's super easy. And there's no change room online, so you just bring it home.
Totally.
But that is, from our conversation with James and JP about the gravity of e-com, like that's a huge cost to a company.
Yeah.
The cost of shipping and returns, and then, restocking and all that kind of stuff. So the reverse logistics is killing a lot of companies. So Amazon has come up with this AI tool that's going to help them in 4 ways. So it'll first make some personalized size recommendations for people. It'll have an enhanced fit insights thing. Like there's all kinds of versions of that already, but it's going to improve that. And then they'll have AI powered highlights from reviews left by other customers, and then they'll have reimagined size charts. So I like it's interesting. Yeah, it's a really good use case for solving a real business problem. And I'm sure you'll be able to see what the investment is, and then measure out an ROI on a particular problem and improve profitability because of your reduction in returns.
I'd just love to see how this comes to life, because this tool would be, I wonder if they can almost like white label it and sell it as well.
Yeah, probably.
Right. Like,
and for sure, Amazon being Amazon, they're 100% going to have something like that. I would imagine it would even be part of their platform as a, an upgrade for retailers that are selling their stuff. Yeah.
You and I will remember, you remember TrueFit?
Yeah.
And we were testing it. And I think we implemented it at Chat and whatnot. I just see this as like that level up.
Totally. Well, and that return rate is probably with things like TrueFit, because so many companies have that already.
That's true. That is true.
Yeah.
So you can tell like this is really top of mind for me. So I got another example here from Marketing
AI?
Egg. Well, this one's a little bit on the cookie. Like,
okay. You've been thinking a lot about cookies lately.
I have been.
Your newsfeed must be full of them.
All over the place.
Yeah.
All over the place. But I thought this one really caught my eye because Yahoo, they still a thing? No, I'm just kidding. They're actually offering advertisers a glimpse into what a cookieless reality actually looks like. So in anticipation, again, of the deprecation of the cookie, they've actually refined their identity testing capabilities to assist advertisers in ensuring campaigns longevity and staying on top of all those media trends that we come into. So they have what they're calling like Yahoo identity solutions, where basically advertisers will be able to trial effectiveness of their campaign, really kind of leaning into what are those future-proofing strategies that you can kind of continue to work with in a more simulated environment through the Yahoo DSP. I love this because it's almost like, put all your campaign parameters in there, put it in this testing environment. What will be potentially the outcome? I thought it's fascinating. Now, the cool thing is Yahoo also, so the identity solutions product also allows testing without third-party cookies, covering frequency capping, targeting, conversion attribution, and reach metrics, while also including demographics, income, interest, lookalike audience, and predictive audiences. Like, this is really robust to have in a testing environment. And I applaud Yahoo for doing this, genuinely.
Yeah, it's a little bit, it's smart. It's a really good idea. It's what 100%. I imagine that Facebook and Google would have in terms of like a media mix model offer embedded into the back of the platform.
Yeah.
So you can run simulations in advance and then actually probably test afterwards on your own to see what kind of response or comparison you get versus the prediction.
I wonder if it'd be...
That's awesome.
The way I see it is like it's a great way to benchmark, to say, remember you'd always get a media plan back and say estimated impressions, estimated clicks, reach, etc. Well, in the simulated environment, you could probably get closer to what the actual benchmarks will be for this campaign.
Totally.
I'm sure like media agents are more sophisticated than what I'm making it out to be. I'm sure like there's software that they use to help.
Yeah, someone out there is already going, duh. Like, wait, yeah. Hey guys, we already do this.
Totally.
But for the average person, this would be great to have.
Yeah, I think so too.
Amazing. Okay, I got another one for you.
What do you got?
Remember my favorite topic, one of my favorite topics, purpose. So there's this report that came out that Canadian big banks are making misleading claims on sustainability. Shocker.
I did not expect that.
Yeah. So there's a watchdog out there that was looking at the Canadian banks, TD, RBC, BMO, CIBC, Scotia, all making pledges to sustainable finance, significant amount of money, and having timelines associated with this. So this watchdog came out and had said basically that they're putting this out there as like their response to climate change and environmental ESG practices and all that kind of stuff, but they're not actually providing any evidence or proof for it. So it's interesting for a whole bunch of reasons, but I really I love the idea of purpose. I love the idea of doing good. And I think why not? I just hate when people greenwash it and just slap it on anything and then make it seem like it's something you check a box on. Like it actually has to be embedded in your business.
I don't remember where we saw this, but I know we talked about this before. It's almost like you can really live and be the purpose that you want, but it's like internal. Like you don't have to externalize it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like if you genuinely have a strong purpose on something, like at WestJet, for example, this never really made it outside of the four walls, but every year a handful of WestJetters would fly into underprivileged regions in Africa to help build homes.
Yeah.
That was never never meant to be externally facing. It was just something that WestJet would do as a part of who they were. Right.
Yeah.
And I love that because it wasn't part of a recruitment strategy or a getting it out there. Look at all the good that WestJet does, etc. Like it was more internal. Of course, some of it did leak into the leak. Maybe it was like positioned, but
intentionally recorded and distributed through press releases.
Exactly. But it was never like a well, I don't know how to put it. Like, it was never in an ad campaigns. It was never
Yeah.
anything of that.
Yeah,
Whereas I think this is where the problem is with a lot of this purpose of the greenwashing, whereas you make it front and center. You're making these big, bold claims, these big commitments. And
Sure.
okay,
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
Anyways.
All right, what else you got?
Well, Super Bowl's coming. Who's excited? Lions
Me?
won.
Oh, I know. It would actually be great to see them in that in the Super Bowl.
I know.
That would be unbelievable.
That would be unbelievable. Even though, like, I really want my Niners to go all the way. But anyways, go Niners. Anyways, System 1. We've talked to John Evans about their product, which is really cool. But they've already started testing basically celebrities versus brand characters. And ads featuring, so System 1 came back saying, so ads featuring brand characters and branded solutions averaged 3.8 stars, where celebrity ads averaged only 2.7 stars. Now, despite big budgets, Super Bowl ads have seen a decline in brand recognition scores from 85 to 83 since 2020, which is a little concerning, which is lower than what typically would see in across U.S. ads. And it seems like Super Bowl ads are facing a challenge of almost 20% of viewers are not recalling the brand, which is essentially causing wastage, at least as System 1 is reporting. Now, what's interesting is System 1 actually recommends introducing those brand characters in your ads. That's if your brand has them, right? Just make sure you're introducing them as early as possible into the ads and enhance that brand recognition. They cite like the M&M example as a way of doing it the right way. While they're also emphasizing the importance of creative ideas being able to explain the brand, the service, and the product without really mentioning them explicitly. So like the inferred, I don't know if you call it messaging. Anyways, for me, the biggest takeaway here is like, you don't need to always look at celebrities to help your brand. You can do it in very other creative ways that probably doesn't cost you the same amount of money.
I mean, in a little bit, it's almost full circle to the solo campaign, because you can do a lot by leveraging. You get. Let me retrace how I'm going to say this.
That's okay.
The influence, like the celebrity, is like an influencer, and so you can overvalue the job of the celebrity because you have a celebrity and you're like, yeah, this is awesome. We've got this, I don't know, George Clooney, Snoop Dogg, whoever. And then you don't put as much effort into making the brand an equal or the hero or the customer, the hero, the brand, the Obi-Wan Kenobi, or whatever your storyline is that you want. But
Keep going.
You undervalue the brand element of that.
Yeah.
I think in some cases. And so in some ways, I'm not really that surprised that the effectiveness or brand recognition is going down.
I guess the way you say it now, I am not surprised as well. I think when I first saw it, I was surprised because I feel like we've been moving away from those brand characters and they've become less and less. And so that for me has become like, oh no, that they still hold a lot of validity.
The brand characters for sure. Yeah, I agree. And I think there's some good studies out there. One of them I keep thinking about is I've seen it published a few times in Marketing Week, talking about the kinds of branded, like distinctive brand elements that there are, and in comparing it, each one of those things to how often it's used versus how effective they are. And so characters and audio jingles, I think, are often the least used, but the most effective.
The most effective. That's crazy.
Yeah. As far as like recall, memory, and links and that kind of stuff. Yeah.
It's a good point.
Anyway, you got a case study.
I got a case study. It's not a traditional case study. I found this in.
Let's hear. I like nonconformist things.
Yeah, I think it's. I think it fits into this. I think it fits into what we do and what we try to bring attention to. But do you remember the most contagious campaign? Sorry, the RAP report, the 2023 that Most Contagious does every year. So I was digging through that just yesterday, and I came across this one called Shrinkflation, and this was by a French grocer in France, so Carrefour. Or I'm probably saying it wrong. Carrefour.
The cycling team.
Yeah, do you remember the cycling thing? That's right.
Yeah.
Carrefour. All the French people are probably like cringing right now in my attempts at their language.
I won't even
apologize,
add to that.
everyone.
Yeah, no.
But just some quick context around this. So France is really unusual in Europe because they strongly regulate the retail sector,
Yeah.
which they really force supermarkets to negotiate prices only once a year with food and drink providers.
Oh.
Now, this is an
Hmm.
attempt to actually protect their farm industry, which when I think
Oh.
about the why, I'm like, well, that's actually kind of smart, right?
Yeah.
Now, however, because of this recessionary state, we've seen it in the supermarkets ourselves. Products get smaller, prices go up. So shrinkflation is a thing.
Yeah.
So this French grocer really wanted to put a pressure on a lot of their suppliers, and they started putting shelf toppers, shelf labels on products that had shrunk in size but increased in price.
Hmm.
So they had found about, I think, 26 products that they had actually highlighted, and they were from Pepsi, Nestle, and I don't remember the third one. But the reason why this is noteworthy, because I think, in my opinion at least, it's unheard of for a supermarket to really go after the suppliers in that way.
Yeah.
But what I love about it, though, it also empowers consumers to make
Yeah.
decisions
Fair
that
point.
encourages like that transparency and
Yeah.
that fair pricing in the industry. Now, of course, this is going to be somewhat self-serving as well because Carrefour has their own private label too. So it's very easy to be like, look at them,
Yeah. Fair enough.
but
Yeah.
look at us.
Yeah. True.
But this was only rolled out across the French Carrefour location. So this was only in France.
Okay.
But they did warn that they could potentially extend this outside of just the products that they've already identified. And however, it doesn't plan to do that across other countries. So Carrefour is actually, I think they're the largest grocer in the world. So they do have a lot of grocery stores in across Europe and whatnot. So where are we at? The fallout.
Yeah.
As of January 5th, Carrefour is telling its customers that in 4 European countries will no longer sell products such as Pepsi, Lay's, Crisps, and 7-Up because they've become too costly. In this latest tug of war over prices between the retailers, it seems like Carrefour is really kind of taking that first punch. Now, this move is quite significant because it's signaling a refusal to pass the undue cost burdens to consumers. And it's kind of a stance that really echoes, if you will, the broader and global societal concern about the rising cost of living, which I have to kind of applaud. Now, what's interesting here in Canada, so the parliamentary committee has been working on a grocery code of conduct, which is really kind of was brought more into light because of this shrinkflation that was happening overseas, or this campaign, if you want to call it that. To make sure that this is how Canada's going to take that first step in avoiding situations like this, which is interesting. Now, I just wanted to end like with what I'm calling our take, so I'm going to assume you're going to agree with this, but my take, our take, we'll see.
Yeah.
The reality is this: taking a strong stance like this does have its own intricacies. While it's strongly opposing the cost practices, and it runs the risk of putting the strain on supplier and on those supplier relationships, but it's also restricting consumer options, right? So this isn't like great, rah, rah, rah. But I do believe like there is a calculated risk here that Carrefour is taking, which underscores a more significant commitment to their overall relation with the customer. And I think that is a win from a consumer perspective.
Yeah.
That's the marketing moment.
Yeah. That's an interesting one. That's a really interesting, because I cook all the time, most of the meals, and I grocery shop like crazy. I probably go to the grocery store, I wouldn't doubt 2 or 3 times a week.
Yeah.
And different grocery stores just based on where I'm at. And so the thing that we talked a little bit about this with Nicole way back when,
That's right,
talking about auto substitution with private label.
Yeah.
And your point is, for me, bang on as a consumer, like, it's not a good news story that you're forcing me to buy your own private label stuff.
Yeah.
And because I don't like a lot of the private label stuff. I like the brands I have. But on the other hand, from the brand perspective, It's a real problem.
100%.
Like your physical distribution is dropping, and like, what are you going to do about it? Because
Yeah.
in our case, being where we live, for me, there's a couple grocery stores nearby. There's a Co-op is a big one, and then
Yeah.
Safeway is a big one, and they're both doing the same thing. I'm sure I don't shop mostly at any of the other places that
Mm-hmm.
are big like Celebs, but they probably do the same thing. They probably have private label, I'm imagining.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of this growing trend from a grocer's point of view. You can improve margins, offer somebody lower price product,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
quality isn't as good to
No.
me. And so it troubles me because I shop all the time.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, but I mean, as a grocery store, like they probably have a way more power than they ever thought they did because they have the location.
Exactly. They have the footprint, they have the adoption. Of course, like Carrefour probably has like their own loyalty programs for spending incentives, etc., which
Sure.
makes sense for consumers to continue to shop there versus, and maybe if you can't get those Pepsi products, are you all too bothered? Maybe you go to Doritos, big deal.
Yeah.
Like, is
Yeah.
it that really, is that, but like on the other
Yeah.
side, that is a problem,
Yeah.
One
Well,
of
and
the
I think in response, you have like in a different environment, like Nike, we had this experience working together in retail.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like Nike was doing a lot at the time to invest in their own footprint and have their own direct to consumer channels, whether it was either online or physical retail locations. I
Right.
think in part of seeing some of these issues and mitigating some of these future problems. But I don't know, CPG is different because you've
It
got
is.
30 to 40,000, I think, or more products in a grocery store. So that's the draw.
Totally.
That's part of the value of having a grocery store. And if you're like Pepsi, I don't know if you have enough product to like have an exclusive store.
I was just gonna say, like, you're probably not doing a DDC. Hey, do you want me to ship you a case of Pepsi?
Pepsi, yeah.
I
I
mean,
mean, maybe you are. I don't know, but
I don't know. Got
yeah,
to be kind of a diehard
yeah,
now, I
it's an
suppose.
interesting one.
Yeah, so I thought it was interesting because like it's not a traditional like campaign of sorts, but I think it shows like how you can be somewhat crafty using your own
Totally,
resources because this was just an internal execution.
totally.
Nothing was outsourced, so I kind of loved it from that perspective.
Yeah,
I'm sure there was some marketing department that was involved in it,
yeah,
but yeah,
that's a great one.
I applaud that.
Audience Q&A, V.
Ah,
Yeah, you had tee this one up because this is on one of your posts.
yeah, so I did a plan is not a strategy post, one of the famous kind of quotes that Roger Martin's been coined for saying. And I just did my own little takes last summary on it and talked about the playing to win framework, et cetera. And Mike Y, apologies, Mike, I don't know your last name there, but Mike Y asked if Roger in the podcast that we did have with him, if he went into any specifics about win. He goes on to say that he could imagine that it could mean different things at different level of decision makers, and what were our thoughts on that. So how about I, put it to you first and
Sure.
see what you think about that.
Yeah. For me, my interpretation of winning is that that's part of the process of defining strategy. In order to achieve all those things, especially through, I actually have the book back there.
There it is.
The green one, Playing to
The
Win.
green one. Yeah.
So in order to achieve a goal, like to line up all the cascading elements of like where to play, how to win, supporting core capabilities and supporting management systems, you need to know what the goal, like we need to know what the goalposts are, where they are, and
Yeah.
like how high they are, and all that kind of stuff. And so I think that's what winning is. Part of the process is to define what that means.
Right.
I think it's really important to have things like SMART goals in there, because you can say, oh, we want to grow, but that's really not going to help anybody.
Yeah.
So I think, some ideas around like, in this particular market segment, we're going to drive market penetration, acquire X number of new customers by Y date, and have a revenue realized of whatever dollars. Like,
Yeah.
something specific like that, where there's a plan, and then everything else in the plan goes to support that particular objective. So I think that's I don't know that I think you're right, Mike. There is different levels of winning for different people.
Yeah.
And probably within the organization, like you can have different departments making their own contribution to that. And winning for each department might look a little bit different, but all has to ladder up to the overall goal and objective.
For me, what you just said there is the key. You can have, if we take it the question literally, so it's like, what is your winning aspiration? You can have that at all levels of leadership, management. It can go all the way down right to the individual contributor. And
totally,
the role of the organization, though, is really kind of to set that North Star. What is that winning aspiration? What are we trying to do and achieve? And then every other one across the organization it's literally how do you ladder to that bigger vision, right?
Yep.
So yeah, it can be different, and it should be different, to be completely honest with you. And I think what I love most about that framework, the way Roger and AG Lafley really well articulated, is it has so many adaptions and adoptions that you can use it for, that it makes it very malleable. And I think it's meant to be malleable as well. So yeah, that's all I would add to that.
Yeah. No, that was a good question.
Thanks, Mike.
Ad of the week. Okay, so this one hits home. This is not a traditional
literally
ad.
home.
We debated about putting this one in or not, but I think it's a good one. Okay, so for anyone that doesn't know, V and I both live in Alberta. For everyone who lives in Alberta, you know how fucking cold it was over the last 10 days. Like, it was minus 40 something at one point.
Jesus.
And it stayed in the high or low minus 30s to minus 40s for a week. It warmed up 30 degrees yesterday to minus 7.
Yeah. We'll take it.
Yeah, a 30-degree swing, and it was still minus 7. It was cold.
Yeah.
So on January 13th, there was an emergency alert sent out to all Albertans at 3:30 p.m. From the Alberta Electric System Operator, and they put it a coordinated alert. Then it went on radio and TV and all kinds of internet and all that kind of stuff. But there was a massive concern that because of the energy consumption, that we were going to have rolling blackouts. And in a situation like that, power would be cut off. People's lives could be at risk because it was so cold. So anyway, by 8:40, the grid alert was declared over, and there was a whole bunch of numbers I don't really understand, kilowatt hours and all that kind of stuff.
Kilojoules.
But yeah, there's a massive reduction in power.
Yeah.
So for me, I was like, that's interesting, because how did that happen? And it was a super effective message, really effective. And if you call it an ad, maybe it's not an ad in the traditional sense, but it did a specific job. It really delivered a result.
100%.
And so for me, I just thought it was an interesting one because it was so personal, and then it was so effective. And so I think there's a couple of lessons I just want to talk about with this one. One, that I think reach matters. Like emergency alert system, it's not something you just turn on every now and then and go, hey, I forgot my keys. Anyone know where that is? But it's a specific thing that it's like the amber alerts or yellow alerts. It's that kind of system that they sent this out on. So it literally reached everybody in Alberta pretty much.
And it creates urgency too, because it's coming from that form. So there's already naturally a heightened level of awareness.
Totally. I think multi-channel matters because it's possible some people didn't have a phone. And like me, I heard an alert go off, but I didn't read my phone for a while. Yeah. My daughter was one of the people that talked about it to me first. And then I heard it. I couldn't stop hearing it when it's turned on the radio and watched TV.
Yeah.
Attention, I think, also matters. Like it was noticeable. And so that mattered. And then also clear messaging, I thought, was really good. Like the emergency alert itself was very prescriptive and very well written, I thought. So turn off unnecessary lights and electrical appliances, minimize the use of space heaters, delay the use of major power appliances, delay charging electrical vehicles and plugging in block heaters, cook with a microwave instead of a stove. It was really practical advice on how to help. And so I applaud them for that, and I think they did a great job with it. And I thought there's, a lot of things we can learn from that.
So I know we were debating like, hey, is this actually an ad? But I think you're right, especially when you take a moment and realize like, well, how is approach the messaging within it? What is an ad supposed to do? It's supposed to raise awareness and likely create action. Well, this did those two things very, very well. And I think you're right in the context that the message itself was very succinct and you knew exactly what was expected of you. And I think the reason why, and I think the next day there was really reports where they applauded the population for taking action because it did really help. Because I think it was one of the coldest nights. That night, I think, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
And like I think it's a great ad lesson, even though this won't make any marketing awards anywhere. I think it was really well done.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, what do we got coming up next week, V?
Christina Gillis from Blackline Safety, and we'll be talking about leading a scale up, which is really, really interesting conversation. It's a very lively conversation as well. Really enjoyed talking to Christine, and that's next week.
Yeah, it's going to be a great one. She's awesome.
So good.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah. Okay. So that's it. That's the Barber's Brief this week.
That's one of our quickest ones. What are we at? 36 minutes. All right.
I don't know. Is it quick?
Is it quick? I don't know.
Yeah, it's 30-ish minutes.
I think
good. We started out saying these are 20-ish.
Yeah, that's not our vibe.
So much to talk about, though.
So many good things.
Yeah. Okay, V. Thanks very much. Yeah. Chase profitability.
Go chase profitability.
Go chase profitability.
There it is.
I'm going to get this right one of these days.
You were supposed to practice over Christmas.
I know. I started practicing guitar.
I have you on record saying that.
I know. It's true.
I
should watch what I say more often. All right, take it easy, buddy.